Welcome everyone. Today we have a special guest on the Turning Points. Nathan, good morning for you. Good morning. I don't know if to say good night. It's 4 a.m. He's in
We're
Australia.
in between.
Yeah, more like good morning to you, Versan. For me, it's actually almost good night. It's actually 9 p.m. here in Greece. So we have three different time zones. So I want to give our guest the opportunity to introduce himself to the audience. He's a BTC Maxi, and he comes to the show today to talk about Solana. I'm just joking. Nathan, just please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Cheeky bugger. No, couldn't be further from the truth. Pleasure to be here, gentlemen. Really, really excited. Been watching your show for probably 2.5 years now. I had the pleasure to chat with Ida a few weeks back, and we had a great time together. And it's now great to be chatting with you too, Versan, and be on this wonderful show. And the information you bestow upon millions of people around the world is just incredible. And me being one of them for so long, it's awesome to be here. But my modest self, a bit about me. I mean, I got into this only, about 2.5 years ago. Quite biblical experience for me. It was a friend of mine at a golf club that got me onto the whole XRP train, and I had a pretty good geopolitical understanding beforehand, but hadn't really tied the financial sector into all that. And that was my commentary prior. Was really on at Cashew Nate. You can find me on Instagram. I'm kind of on X as well, but Cashew is our company, and Cashew Nate is obviously me. And I just expanded the knowledge into the financial sector over a long time, as your audience can appreciate. It takes a lot of time to unpack, and really probably thousands of hours to get your head fully around things. And we're obviously still always learning and keeping up to date with everything as of today. So just I'd say I'm XRP Maxi, but no, I'm really just super interested in this subject matter. I truly do believe that we are at the forefront of a revolutionary shift. I think it's almost biblical in a lot of ways, which if you want we can talk a bit about later. And it's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to learn from you guys, and excited to chat.
Yeah, well, you've contributed so much. I mean, your Instagram following is insane, and it's just an honor to always welcome another critical thinker to the table. I mean, that's what we try to do here. Try to discuss things beyond the headlines.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate the compliment, guys. It's been wild. Didn't expect that it would grow this quickly and be received this well. So it's cool to penetrate in your own little way, and I think people have really taken a liking to the bite-size information that is really hard to get your head around, So I try and make it easier for the layman to understand. I think that's kind of my target market, really breaking it down super simple for them in bite-sized packages. So if you're interested in that and you haven't found my page yet, definitely go check it out.
We'll add the link in the description of this video once we're done with the live stream, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest Instagram content creators of XRP. By the way, it's very difficult to build an audience on Instagram. Most people are just scrolling through different topics, and usually it's not crypto that they are interested about. So I'm very impressed that you were able to actually build a solid following on Instagram. I used to say that it's more easy to do the same on X. I mean, most people on X are driven for crypto, so that makes it kind of easier. Now, before getting to the final subjects, I would like to ask Versan about his experience. There has been something very, I would say, uncommon to happen to him. He got debanked, right? So why don't you share some thoughts on that, and perhaps we can all contribute with our own experiences?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of you don't know I was debanked. I put that on X, and that simply just means that the institution was decided to no longer want me as a client, and they thought it'd be easier to just pretty much shut my account down entirely. And it did not come from the local branch. I received a letter directly from the federal investigations at the highest levels of that bank. And the main reason was because, and it's in the letter, I'm not even kidding. Maybe I can post a picture later, but I was withdrawing large amounts of cash directly from my account. Now, I know what some people have already said. They're saying, well, hey, if you take out too much cash, it's going to raise a red flag. Believe me, I've done this with full awareness. I've been doing this long before I recently pulled profits out, using discretion in a way that doesn't actually trigger an automated alarm. Like if you pull out more than $10,000, yes, it's going to raise a red flag. I wasn't doing that. It was way under the threshold. So I started pulling money out very slowly and strategically, of course, to get positioned into physical assets. A lot of my listeners know I'm huge on physical assets, specifically gold. And the gold price already shot up since I've been pulling that money out. And suddenly they actually want to know, it's in the letter, where is all the money going? And this is exactly the problem with growing intrusion from financial institutions and banks, because they are so desperate to actually track, trace, and scrutinize every move you make. And there's no financial privacy left anymore. And I think what's ironic is, they keep talking about decentralization, and yet I think the most decentralized form of cash currency we've ever had was cash, because it gave you the anonymity you need. And so here they are pushing now a digital system where everything is already monitored. So in my opinion, it's just kind of laughable, comical, until it actually happens to you. And that's what just happened to me. And if I could give maybe even some more breakdown to this, is that where was the cash going? And, I'm under no obligation legally to reveal anything and everything that I've given, but I have given them like a list of personal, things I purchased with the cash. I didn't disclose like everything, because the move from cash into physical assets is designed for me to preserve my wealth when we have a corrupt, unconstitutional central bank that keeps printing trillions of dollars and devaluing the very currency that they're forcing us to use. And that's, where I tell my audiences, I always buy physical assets with cash. So there's no digital trace, no digital trail. And that's how I think you can maintain some true ownership. And to kind of end this, this isn't just regional banks. This is happening at the very top as well, I guarantee you. JP Morgan, we had some clients who take sessions with us. We tried to make big purchases in crypto. And it's funny because they were saying we don't condone these kind of transactions, right? And it's the very same institutions that are positioning themselves with the very same technology they're refusing to allow you to invest in. So again, this is kind of laughable. Final thing I'll tell you, I promise, guys. I'm sorry, I'm hijacking the whole conversation. I go into the branch, and the director of this branch, he knows me very well. And I told him, I was like, why are you guys investigating me? We were kind of laughing about it. And I said, I've been fully transparent. You've got my documents. You see where the cash, some of the cash transactions went. I provide them with everything. And I said, you're not going after the large accounts who are laundering millions of dollars of drug money into your system. And he laughed. And then I said, because you guys depend on those cash deposits. And he said, yeah, that's so true. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I actually have the audio, but I'm not putting it up there after speaking with some of my friends, because it could really bring some lawsuits. And that's like how serious it was. But I have it on audio here. So again, there's no real anonymity. And I'm, trying to preserve my wealth, guys. But this is what happens when you play against their system. And once again, just to highlight, it just shows you how insolvent they are. They're very intrusive, and this is a risk to all of us. It really is.
And you even mentioned you paid even the taxes for the crypto, right? So that was like legal money.
Yeah, you guys remember when I mentioned I took the profits from SHX and Velo? I mean, what happened shortly after that? The market tanked. The smart thing was to take the profits. You could put it in a stable coin, but I refuse to do that just yet because the system is not fully digital. I wanted to get into hard assets like gold. And I think gold is something we all need to have some ownership of: physical gold, physical silver. And we can talk about that later. Yeah.
It's terrible. Even on one of the minor points you made in terms of, we're all in the business here to help people protect their wealth and sovereignty with assets. And I've had countless people, and it's happened to me as well, when you go to try and purchase crypto on an exchange even, and my bank will hold my money for 2 days. And I don't know, I mean, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, it probably changes in law, but even for me, a large purchase, like obviously we're all pretty acutely aware of when a good buy time is available. And I can't do it unless I'm pre-prepared, which obviously I am now. But early days when I was trying to buy up large sums, no chance. I even called the branches. I've said, why are you blocking me? And their words verbatim were, well, crypto's still considered gambling, so we're not releasing your funds, and it has to wait the 2 days. So it's something that a lot of my Australian listeners and viewers deal with every day, and they really just have to stick to like a small dollar cost average strategy and be well prepared for dips. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult to bypass.
I remember back in 2019 when there came out the pandemic. I remember Australia was very controlling of its citizens. I remember viewing videos that seemed out of a fiction movie, right? And back in that moment was exactly when the SEC lawsuit came against Ripple. And I remember that XRP was below 20 cents. So I had this sense of urgency. So I wanted to make a transfer from my Santander accounts in Portugal. Back there, I was living in Portugal, and Portugal is known to be a crypto-friendly country. That's what they say, and they refused to send the transfer of $10,000 to crypto exchange because they consider that to be illegal. And I had to actually move towards another branch, and it took me days to finally get the transfer through. And that shows that they are actually controlling us a lot, and they make you feel uncomfortable by having your own cash that you already paid taxes and is legal money. So they are making it impossible for the average Joe, for the average citizen to actually become wealthy, because most people, they even give up before getting started because they know that when you are dealing with quite large sums of cash, you're going to deal with a lot of headaches. So a lot of people give up before even getting started in crypto, in so many countries with the high taxation. And I think the United States is very strict with that. I am from Italy, so in Italy there is a lot of high taxation for crypto as well. So not only you are paying taxes for an industry that's not fully regulated. I mean, if you lose your crypto, if someone, let's say the exchange bankrupts tomorrow, like happened in the past with FTX, nobody's gonna be there to assist you. But ironically, they want you to pay taxes on that, right? And the banks want to. So it's so many layers of control, and people were misguided to believe that Bitcoin was going to come here to actually free everyone. And that's related to a picture that Michael Saylor, who you love him, that he posted on. I'm just joking, but he posted a picture on Twitter. I'm not sure if you guys have seen, and he's just holding an apple, and I think it's like take the bite. So it really looks like Bitcoin is here, and a lot of people use it to think that Bitcoin was going to be the freedom currency, but it seems that they released it as a test currency, a test net, and it's just a precursor for central bank digital currency. So the process of digitalization is speeding up, and unfortunately, a lot of people thought that blockchain technology was here to free us, but it ends up being quite the opposite way. In October, CBDCs are rolling out in Europe, so they are tightening the control, and it's becoming even more difficult to actually withdraw cash. It's if you, let's say you go to your bank and you say you want to take $50,000, even if it's your own money, there's going to be so much questions. There's going to be so much control that you even feel guilty of holding. Like you feel a criminal by holding your own cash. That's how they control us so much on this instance. Now,
can I add some flavor real quick to something also Nathan mentioned? Nathan was mentioning how challenging it is for a lot of people to access digital assets in Australia. This is also very familiar with a lot of our clients in the UK as well, but we've had issues with some of our clients in Australia trying to position themselves in these same assets. So, to your point, I think what it really comes down to, and hence what I experienced recently, and I think we're hitting a nerve with a lot of these regional banks and even the larger financial institutions. And the reality is because a lot of them are really insolvent. And many, I think, of these institutions are already operating way below the required reserves that they need to have under the FDIC regulations. And it's not just the US, it's all over the world. And I think the truth is, most people have no idea how fragile the system really is. And I think even some of the withdrawals I was taking probably exposed that fragility. And that's the first thought that came to my mind when this happened to me.
Crazy. Just quickly, what's the interim solution been for you, Versan?
Well, they want to know exactly where those cash transactions went to. And the good news is I didn't just put everything into digital assets. A lot of people who follow me on Instagram, I'm a musician. I bought about $8,000 worth of music equipment. So that's something I could give them. They needed 5 transactions of cash. Where did it go to? I also bought a lot of artwork. Edo has seen it. Beautiful artwork. That was not cheap either. So that should suffice. And I'm dealing with that today. Hopefully they will resolve this matter. And then just to throw it out there for a lot of our listeners, and this is why I've said in the past before, it's a good idea to have multiple bank accounts if you can for this kind of scenario, because you don't want to be excluded from the financial system. And what's even more frightening is as we go digital, there are going to be conditions. We've talked about this in the past where people are going to have to adhere to those some certain conditions in order to participate in the digital financial system. You included.
Yeah, I want to add something quickly, and I think it comes out as some solutions for that. You mentioned, Versan, to have multiple bank accounts. That's absolutely true. I think if you manage to settle in multiple jurisdictions, that's also going to help you in the future. One case is to have the Palau digital ID, so you can get the resident card from Palau. You can key IC on multiple exchanges, and you can bypass a lot of the control so that you don't have to use, for example, your own passport to just use the Palau digital ID. I know also the US, it's more severe, and when it comes to taxation, it's I think the only country in the world where you are obligated to declare the taxes and you have to have the double taxation. It's not like in Europe, for example, if I am from Italy, I can just shut down my tax number in Italy and I can open a new one in Greece, for example. So that gives you a lot of ways to bypass the taxation. But I know that's very difficult for American citizens. So I think that's something to be thinking for the next years. If you are American, to be thinking of ways where you can bypass that government control.
Definitely. I mean, I was stuck in my own postcode during COVID, so it's not as easy as Europe to move around and do things.
You know, I really, it's so sad how just the UK, the European countries and Australia were heavily restricted to do so many things. In the West, you know, to a degree, people could decide for themselves a little bit. Like when the pandemic hit, I was the first person in my family to stand up and say, that is bullshit. And it's even funnier because not one day changed for me in the pandemic. I still worked out every day. I went outside. I didn't wear a mask. I got kicked out of many restaurants, as you can imagine. And I said, fine, you know, I'm happy to boycott this. I started cooking more at home. I learned recipes. So in so many ways, like the pandemic kind of enhanced who I was and brought out a lot of who I could be too. And, you know, it's very clear after the pandemic, it's now easy to tell who's who, which side are you on. So that was really beneficial. Now you know who to weed out, if that makes any sense. So
ultimate blessing. Yeah.
It was a blessing in disguise, right?
It was.
And some people, made money too, you know, which was great. I mean, so, but yeah, if I can maybe, you know, Edo, we should talk about this $150 trillion trust. I don't know if you saw that, Nathan.
I did, yes.
My God, man, I have been getting so many emails and messages of people just attacking me. And I'm happy to, you know, break this down, but do you guys have any input first before we begin?
I have a question because I mean, you remained agnostic in like the way you posted that. It was just a clever post, and Jim Rickards always gets the, you know, the cogs turning, so to speak. My high level thought was, well, because he also believes in that whole ICE 9 thing and the
you remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole shell company, and when they choose to implode the system, they'll just implode the system. Which, I mean, it's very hard to unwrap the credence to all of those claims. But I did find this one particularly interesting because for me, my high level thoughts has always been, and I think maybe it was your brother Vandel mentioned it, that we're kind of we're definitely at the precipice where, you know, we either implode the current system or we come up with like a Bretton Woods Agreement 2.0 to save it and shift away. But either way, we're moving to a new system. So on that notion, you kind of think, well, there has to be some sort of ace up the sleeve that we don't know about or that we're potentially missing and that we can't connect all the dots to. And perhaps this is one of the aces up the sleeve. I've always thought the gold. I think there's something going on with gold, and maybe we can talk about that later. But that was my high level thinking. But I'm really keen, very keen to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, This is, as you already described so eloquently, this is a multi-layered kind of thing that's being revealed. And I think, I've mentioned this in the past before. We don't necessarily need a crash for, a lot of these technologies to pave the way for where this is going anyways. We could certainly just see the evolution of it. And this, I always tie that back to an article that came out from the IMF. And I know a lot of people don't trust the International Monetary Fund, neither do I. But the IMF came out and posted something, and the Wall Street Journal, which we don't trust either, picked it up. And it said on the newspaper, crypto can actually stave off a debt crisis. See, and the devil is in the detail for me. When I look at things like that, I start to put other pieces in place that make sense. I'm talking about a lot of the behind the scenes activity. And like you said, there's an ace up the sleeve, right? So if I were to break this down, first of all, a lot of people were saying that this is AI generated. And the truth is, I have the rest of the actual interview, and it's not that video. He was sitting down with another gentleman where he actually, for like 23 minutes, discussed this thoroughly. The reason I haven't posted it yet is because I wanted to let all the idiots speak out first and then make them look stupid after I post it later on down the road. So that's the truth. The video is real. I have the full interview. Jim Rickards, he brought up quite a few interesting things. I'll be uploading it later on for those who don't know. But I don't think Jim Rickards is just any random commentator. He's advised the Pentagon and the CIA on multiple occasions. And I've been following his work for years. And his book, I think The Road to Ruin, is laying out everything that's already unfolding. If you haven't read it, I encourage people to at least listen to it. It's a roadmap for the collapse that we've been witnessing right now. And regarding this trust, according to Rickards, if you listen to the video, he says it was established in 1873 by members of Congress and probably some other major players. And I wouldn't be surprised, because if you looked at some of the history we've seen in the past, even with this US aid thing coming out, just to confirm the precedent for where we're going with this, is we've seen trillions already funneled off into hidden accounts, stolen, reallocated over the years. So the existence of a trust like that on that very notion wouldn't shock me at all. So let's start with that. Can you guys agree with that?
100%. Look at the black budget funding, trillions of dollars every
there
year
you go.
go to
the
transnational like that. That's absolutely.
Right. So now moving forward, let's take this to the next step. Jim Rickards actually said that this trust was designed to be injected back into the American economy. Now, let's try to break this down thoroughly. As traditional market lends, for instance, that's considered to be liquidity. So to fuel the system, like right now, we need to inject liquidity into it, right? And why are we hearing about the talk of lower interest rates? And I don't care about the narrative behind it, but lower interest rates means more money printing. And also we hear a lot of people saying we're in the beginning stages of a bull market. What I'm trying to say and connect the dots here is that this could be the massive liquidity push that pumps everything a lot higher. So if we're really like trying to break this down and we're talking about leveling capital infusion into the monetary system, that theoretically could make every American a millionaire. Does that make sense? And now moving forward, at the same time, we could look at this from helping dissolve global debt. In the video, he actually says that this could help dissolve the US debt system. So that's something we can also talk to the direction that we've been heading when we're talking about a gold-backed digital system. I like what you said, Nathan. You said gold is going to play a critical role in this. Absolutely. We've been emphasizing this for years. So it's not hard to even think that XRP has a role to play here as well, right? So financial institutions are running, I think, these pilots, these stress tests with XRP, high valuations in the private ledgers. It's no accident. If you're trying to settle the global debt system in a digital system backed by commodities, I think XRP fits perfectly. And when I start breaking all of this down, how does this tie directly into this trust fund, right? I don't really know. And I can tell you this, though, something bigger is happening. Even the Pope just died the other day. That's something maybe we can talk about, but it's just not on the news. It's not trending on social media, but we can confirm for sure that there's a wealth transfer happening right now behind closed doors. Just like Nomi Prinz said from Goldman Sachs, I reposted it on X the other day. She said that this would not be televised. It wouldn't be put out there. It's happening behind closed doors. Look at where the money's going. So whether the 150 trillion fund is real or not, I really don't give a shit. It's about transitioning into a digital commodity-backed world. That's not speculation. That's coming straight from the BIS, the IMF, other global financial institutions. My point being, to end this, sorry guys, is that smart money is flowing into gold, commodities, and digital infrastructure. Meanwhile, I think most Americans, some of these newcomers who are just entering the space, right? They're being steered into treasury bonds, 401ks, assets that could potentially evaporate overnight. And I'll say this one more time. It's important to own physical assets, because what I see happening here is a global heist in such a way that is very few people are going to benefit from this. They are consolidating all the wealth, and we'll talk about Ripple later on. But everything is eventually going to move from one place to another. From overvalued markets, historically, they go into under-suppressed markets. And in this case, let's say commodities have been suppressed since 1971. And if you look at and factor in all the global debt, you're talking about a monetary reset, right? And gold is going to play a critical role. At these prices, it's not going to work that way. And financial technology, that's been suppressed. The SEC lawsuit is an example. So I'm just telling people to think about this. And I can't believe it. Some people are actually upset about this. Why would you be upset, even if it's not real? You know, it's like, but the video is real. The information behind it, that's a whole different subject. So I just try to break these things down and make sense of what doesn't make sense, I guess.
I notice a lot of language patterns as well. I think you brought up a good point there. The notion of the narrative. The narrative this probably last 6 months in particular has always been around minerals, commodities, and blockchain technology. That's the kind of the new triangle of trust that I'm noticing. In you pick it up in podcasts when you listen to like Scott Besson on Tucker Carlson. You listen to all the media interviews that no one else listens to, that you can pick up on X with what Scott Besson says or Trump says or all these critical people, and you start to subconsciously pick up on language patterns and go, well, hang on, why did he say that? Why did he say that? Why did he say that? Well, clearly they're mapping this out. And I think to your point, Versan, if you look at the debt clock, they've got a really nice graphic on there of, you know, unmonetized sort of assets that the US have, which speaks to this Jim Ricketts point. You know, land, minerals, all these things are listed, and you can go, well, geez, like if that's actually unlocked and has been hidden away for so long, yeah, it's absolutely plausible. And it's undeniable that that's the direction we're heading either way, without this trust or not. They are the backbone of the direction we're going.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think you made some very good points there. Land as well. Yes. So, I mean, it got 2.5 million views, I think, on X, which is pretty incredible. But there are a lot of other people out there who are actually breaking it down better. And I'm not saying that I'm correct about my analysis, what I just shared with our audience here, but there are going to be other people out there who can fill in those missing blanks, right? And that's the beauty of having a community, a real good community, you know, is we can all kind of participate in helping it to expose what's actually transitioning here. So I just wish people would have more of an open mind and maybe go look for answers elsewhere regarding this trust. A lot of people have already, retweeted it with their own explanations behind it. So I encourage everyone to go look at that.
Yeah, most people were just lambasting you, putting it through Grok and like ChatGPT. It's like, well, why don't we? Because I'm actually this morning, when we get off this call today, I've got it penciled in to do a deep dive into that and try and figure it out for myself. And if it's really worth doing, I will be doing a video on it if I find new stuff, and obviously I'll share it with you. So yeah, you're spot on. Critically think before you jump the gun, you know?
Yes. And thank you. That'd be great too. But I'm sometimes afraid to tweet things, and because I get so many people saying Grok said this, and I just wish I could say, please stop sending me Grok messages like I give a shit. You know, replies like that, they're the gospel. It's lazy, it's unoriginal, and I don't need a biased, which has been documented already, biased AI chatbot to tell me how to think for myself. I believe all of us, we have eyes, we have ears, we have instincts, we have God-given intellect, you could say. So don't follow the algorithms, follow the data, follow the money, and just critically think for yourself whether you're right or wrong.
Totally agree, Versan. And by the way, people have to learn how to use AI, but still think for themselves. If you just go to AI and you're gonna believe everything that AI say, guess what? Has been programmed. Try to ask if you should eat saturated fats. It's gonna tell you that you better go for sunflower oil. So I think that's very tells you everything you need to know. And Versan, you have mentioned before the live that we should make some comments on the I think $1.25 billion acquisition of Ripple, the brokerage hidden road, right? You want to make some comments on that?
Would you like to make your comments first? I feel like I've been taking a lot of the conversation, guys. I want to hear your perspectives as well.
I want to give some space for Nathan as well, as he's
Yes,
the guest.
please.
Let's get him started. Then I can share my thoughts, and then you can go as well.
Oh, you go first, Cito. I've taken up a lot as well. Happy to listen to you first, and then I'll feed off you.
Oh, it's very aligned with Ripple's strategy. I mean, it's a bridge between the traditional finance and blockchain technology. So I think we're going to see a lot of more acquisitions from Ripple. And we can very see Ripple positioning itself almost as a World Bank institution. So it now has all the means to provide liquidity, to become a liquidity provider. And that's aligned with XRP's primary function, which is also the title of my video, which is a bridge currency. And that's also tied to what we were talking in the beginning of this video. We are living through a liquidity crisis, and XRP is born for this moment on time. So we are talking about the only asset, and I would argue together with XLM, that is capable to solve the multi-billion-dollar problem, which is about the pre-funded accounts. So as I see right now, Ripple is literally becoming a tier one financial institution at a global level. So the fact that they just made an acquisition of $1.25 billion, and just for the record, that's probably the biggest acquisition on the Web3 space. You don't have any other crypto company that is doing something similar. And that's something that I always tell to my audience, that they should not be focusing on the price fluctuations of those digital assets and the XRPs and the XLMs. And what matters if yesterday it was $2.15 and today is $2.09. I think we have been focusing on what Ripple and Stellar are building behind the scenes. And I just think that this acquisition is just one more confirmation towards what we call institutional adoption.
Yeah. Nathan, would you like to put something in there?
Yeah, just the add-on. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's worth $3 trillion a year, that unlock. I think that was the figure. And, again, as you said, it's just another building block to this fundamental powerhouse narrative that we're seeing unfold brick by brick right before our eyes. And yeah, I guess this is the tip of the iceberg as well. We really haven't seen all of the big major announcements come. I think that'll probably come after regulations drop, to be honest, and it's also strategically mapped out. But yeah, there was murmurs of this actually. I think it was late 2023 that there was discussions going on with Hidden Road, and again, not many people would have picked up on the paper trail at that point. But yeah, I think there's links as well to BlackRock. I haven't actually gone into super detail into. I know it's sort of a clearinghouse and everything, be a massive unlock, but yeah, just another great unlock for Ripple and another building block.
Yeah, no, totally. As far as BlackRock, something very interesting Rick Rule talked to us about after our interview with him. He shared with my brother and I. He said, at the higher levels of finance and the higher echelons of finance, he said, secrecy is the name of the game. And my point, though, to the BlackRock thing, dear friend of mine, Jimmy Valley, in 2022, I believe, late towards 23, he sent me an article from BlackRock. It was a JP Morgan analyst who revealed back then that BlackRock and JP Morgan were increasing huge positions in XRP. And then I posted it with the link. Some people say you need to provide links for sources. And I had the link up there, not even kidding. About 10 minutes later, it started getting lots of traction. And the link was just sanitized. You can click on the link. It's still on my X if you go back. And that link will say there's no page there. And I'm not even kidding. It was there. My point, though, it's like at the higher echelons of finance, they're not going to tell you what the hell they're doing until it's already mainstream news. And once it's mainstream news, you're already late to the party. That's the reality of how the game works in finance. The idea is to do your own research and, put these pieces together. But then again, it's very naive and I think very stupid to believe that the behemoths of finance are not going to be at the very forefront of digital technology and where this is all going. So you got to be completely lost like John Francis here to say things like that. And, I'm not here to help people bridge these things together, but, XRP price fluctuations, it doesn't shake my faith or confidence in the technology itself. There is no doubt that Ripple is actually gradually, I would say, revealing itself as a true global central bank. And not just in the traditional sense, because if you pay attention very closely, Ripple is the one who's been consolidating the infrastructure, building the infrastructure piece by piece, the on and off ramps, the liquidity networks, hence the Hidden Road partnership now you see, or the purchase, acquisition, cross-border settlements. And this is all being done quietly, strategically. There's no doubt about it. And if I could go even further into detail, something I've been researching recently about Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, it led me to something a little bit wild. I've been discussing this with my brother Vendel quietly until we can poke holes and then come out with a solution to this. What I see happening with Doge is that they are intentionally exposing waste, corruption, and useless spending in Congress to accelerate the narrative of ending the Fed. And here's the counter argument to that. The Federal Reserve was always designed to collapse on its own weight. Basically, it was going to collapse because the debt eventually implodes on itself. And that's when the Fed would not be able to handle the situation. So I think this is, again, where Doge is exposing it to help accelerate this trend. And you can see this now growing. Everyone's saying, end the Fed, right? And we need to. It should have never been established to begin with. And besides that, even Doge, the corruption has always been in plain sight. So Doge is, in my opinion, is not exposing anything to me that I didn't already know. And I think that's, again, where Ripple comes into this conversation, because what they're doing here is accelerating this public-private shift in finance, and it's already underway. We can confirm this. And, I think they're trying to privatize the global monetary system. And I'm just telling everyone, forget the headlines, do the honest research behind it. And Ripple, no doubt, is consolidating all the digital rails. They're implementing them. They're putting them together for the new financial system. And I'm telling you, it's not speculation. It's playing out in real time. So that's how deep this really goes, what's going on behind the headlines.
Absolutely. You guys speak so well about it as well in terms of the problem solution, but be cheeky about it. And the problem being the inefficiencies. And I think Doge has obviously solved that, but it's also to embed the technocratic system that we're moving towards. And yeah, I mean, that's undeniable. And there's that catch up, and, XRP is at the forefront of that. So it's all synergistic at the end of the day. And just correct me if I'm wrong, but I've done a few pieces on the Fed in the past, and all it takes really is Congress collectively, unanimous Congress voting to say that they don't need the Fed anymore, and the Republic-backed dollar can then be reinstated. Is that correct?
It's a very interesting take, but I think this was always going to happen anyways. And I think that's also now where RLUSD comes into the picture. And that's a different topic, but certainly it would play into what you're saying over there. So I'm just trying to bridge it without having to go into too much detail.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you're onto something there for sure. Certainly. Edo?
I want to bring another topic to the table. Just let me share the screen here.
The Pope?
Well, there's some interesting things, right? The Pope has passed away mysteriously on the Easter time. Also, Klaus Schwab has resigned from the World Economic Forum, but there is something even better happening at times right now. So this is about Ethereum. Can you guys see the screen? Yeah. So Ethereum is at a low fee. Like right now, the Ethereum fees are just 0.01, and that's not because the network is working very well, but that's because the usage is hitting new lows. So meaning that less and less people are utilizing Ethereum, and we all know that most of DeFi was built on top of Ethereum in the last 3-4 years. Ethereum also is sitting at a 70% loss if we consider the last 3 or 4 months. So XRP has massively been outperforming Ethereum. So how do you guys see this low usage for Ethereum? Do you think it's time finally for a swap, meaning a massive transfer of not only data and all of the DeFi that is sitting on top of Ethereum that can migrate towards XRP, XLM, and better chains, but also can attract a lot of new developers, for example, because right now there is this crisis happening on Ethereum network. So how do you guys see that?
Nathan, would you like to put something in there first?
Oh, I'll be open. I mean, I'm not really. I don't spend much time looking into Ethereum, to be honest. But just because I'm just not really interested, and as you guys so eloquently put it, it's pretty archaic. But I will say this: I think I was getting a lot of inside word from some people a few months back. This was when everything was still kind of hunky dory with prices, and just before the election. Sorry, not just before the inauguration. And some of these people were saying there was a huge unlock coming for XDC and Ethereum, somehow linked to R3 and supercomputers coming out later this year once regulations are clear. This guy was telling me August, and he's been saying August since like late last year. So I don't know enough about the problem solution on that front. But I also have had just a mountain of people that I consider pretty credible sources say that there is something brewing. I've found it strange that it's just so far behind in this bull cycle. But I also understand that it's archaic in a lot of ways. And obviously XDC, which I am very favorable on, solves a lot of its problems. So I couldn't give you a super informed opinion on it. But I certainly value reading and listening to your guys' opinions, and I can't honestly say I know what its fate will be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much of an opinion on it. I'm very similar to you, Nathan. I don't research it enough because I simply just not interested in it. I've said this so many times. There are opportunities in the digital asset space for many different things. We talked about this last time, Sandbox example, and a lot of things, even with Solana meme coins. And these are ways for people, I guess, to get money in and out. But if you look at the whole crypto space, in my opinion, it is majorly just one massive pump and dump. It's unregulated, and they count on it to be unregulated so they can siphon more wealth from people. The house always wins more. This is no different than the .com bubble. Let's document what I have over here from 2015. I've showed this a few times, and hence your statement, Nathan, on R3 Corda. It does mention something about it here. And what do I bring this up for? I hope you guys can read this. But I think in some way, form, or fashion, for even Bitcoin or XRP to have any use case, you start to realize that this digital asset ecosystem is a very complementary one in so many ways, I think, yet to be revealed. We still don't understand. So many people have said in the past, even for Bitcoin to potentially reach, $1 million or anything like that, it would have to rely on that cross-border functionality, that liquidity settlement. And these are the things, again, that XRP in some way, form, or fashion offer as solutions compared to some of these other digital assets. So again, each of these assets have its own use case. And I think we're going to see more of that over time. Why am I not interested in Ethereum and Solana? Somebody asked me earlier about Solana and ADA Cardano. It's just, I feel like, the return on investment, not now, but maybe later on down the road, is going to be far better when you're invested in the technologies closest to the infrastructure of the monetary system, because that's where the money is, right? Everything else seems to become an aggregate of those very systems that we're talking about to begin with. So I personally just stick to what I know best. And I've been following Ripple and XRP way back, even 2019. That's when we kind of got into it. And if you look around very closely, they seem to be the only regulated financial institution that we're starting to see clarity now around. And building all the infrastructure, the on and off ramps, the corridors of liquidity, and Stellar as well, I think is another big one we should talk about another time. And that's where I see the value at. I really do. Seems like these two are really at the forefront of all of it. So why do I need to research anything else? And I think maybe for clarity, there's some use case for that, but that's where I stand on all this. I just don't care enough about Ethereum.
You didn't miss nothing on not researching well on Ethereum. We're talking about one of the coins that had the worst performance on this cycle. And I truly appreciate what you said, Versan. It's a matter of return per investment, right? Let's be realistic here. Ethereum is right now close to $2,000. Even if it goes to, let's say, $10,000, which is very unlikely, that's barely a 5x from current levels. And that's the same reasoning that I have utilized when Bitcoin was $70,000 a couple of months ago, and XRP was just 50 cents. And that was the same. I mean, the returns of XRP were 500% greater than the ones with BTC. So the same logic applies here. So being very optimistic that XRP goes to, that Ethereum goes to $10,000, you would have far better returns if XRP just hit $20. So I think we are investing on the most undervalued digital assets that are working closely. I mean, not the digital asset itself, but the companies working closely with policymakers. And that's exactly the case for Ripple and Stellar. And that's why on the turning point, we have been focusing far more on the superior technologies. But we never once said that the future is only one chain. I mean, there's no doubt that there will be multiple chains and the future is multi-chain. Hence why we also mentioned in the past the Interledger protocol, which is going to connect the rails. And that's why most chains are going to connect with each other. And that's going to be the case for Stellar, Ethereum, perhaps other chains as well. But I think from the investment perspective, that's why I have been telling everyone to stay away from Ethereum, because they have also used Ethereum to money laundering in the past. And all of that coins on top of the ERC20 ecosystem are now almost dead. And unless there's a miracle from liquidity, and I'm not saying it's impossible because of the M2 money supply that's increasing exponentially. So unless there's some miracle on top of that, we can see some recover for the ERC20 ecosystem. But for now, I prefer to stack heavily on the XRPs, the Velos, the SHXs. I mean, all of the ISO 20022 related cryptocurrencies, and I know they are not ISO 20022 compliant, but the companies and the messaging systems are. So I have been making the right choices, and I hope the audience as well has stayed away from Ethereum. But it's very interesting that as the Ethereum network usage decreases, that also translates to more users and more liquidity migrating towards the XRP Ledger ecosystem, because ultimately that's the best alternative when you really start to think about the gas fees and when you think about the velocity of transactions. It really comes out that XRP and XLM are the best alternatives for the archaic technology.
Yeah, we're being bombarded with scammers right now in the comments.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you guys noticed that. That's insane.
Yeah, and
just to let everyone know, yeah, there's a lot of scammers posting the same thing over and over. So be mindful, and I'm going to delete them, of course, when we're done here. I try so hard to protect our audience from impersonators and scammers. And to your point, Ido, it's like there are a lot of other better technologies out there that are far superior to what Bitcoin and Ethereum are trying to do. And I'm not trying to hate on Bitcoiners out there. It's nothing like that. But there is a lot of tribalism in this space. It's just like when you start to think about the return on investment compared to the dollars that are being issued in the system, inflation, my point, you get more for your money when you're investing in better technologies with fundamentals, real fundamentals behind them. And more importantly, the prices you're looking for to get a better deal. on those assets. And it's kind of funny because some of the worst technologies are out there that are already being replaced by technologies already in motion with regulators and financial institutions are a lot cheaper than some of the ones that are being outcasted very gradually. Bitcoin and Ethereum, there are rabbit holes we can get into another time. We've talked about this so many times, and the relationship with Bitcoin and the US bond market, how they're propping it. I wrote papers on this before. And then Ethereum, we can even go back to ETHgate, hence the SEC lawsuit when it began. So there's a lot of corruption in this space. A lot of people are using this as a mechanism to siphon wealth, not to mention the Ethereum protocol had some relationship to China to further consolidate digital infrastructure and continue to just enforce different kind of regulations on these users who are, again, very new to this space and not knowing that there are other technologies out there that are being put in place behind the scenes. So everyone needs to be doing better research when you're investing in this stuff and not just think, hey, I'm going to put some money in here. It's going to go up and I'm going to pull it out right away. Have a short-term position where you can take profits. Specifically, I think SHX and Velo, been saying this for a year now. It worked already once for me. It's going to work again. And the second one for long-term, where you're actually invested in the technologies, building the infrastructure and being regulated behind closed doors and even, on the very surface. So we're starting to see headlines like this. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys, I have been blocking here.
I noticed. Yeah, scammers are working overtime. It means we're hitting some critical points here.
Yeah, they are live for the first time. I never saw them coming live.
Yeah,
maybe
it's funny.
Probably from my account, guys. I have squillions of in-person. It's shocking.
No, it's okay. We'll put them in their place.
I'm banning all of them. Honestly, every day I take about 20 minutes of my day to just ban from the comments section. That takes a lot of effort, Sinus.
Yeah, for me, it's about an hour.
Wow, it's a full-time job almost.
Yeah, you need to hire someone just to deal with the scammers, We're going to get there someday. Hey, you know what, Nathan? I think maybe we can take the conversation in a different direction. Tell us a little bit more about what you do. I watched a recent clip that you put out, and it was very interesting. Something, many people in here pay very close attention to riddles and gematria and subliminal messaging, soft disclosure. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit, and then, we'll bounce back and forth.
Yeah, I think I'm probably at the level where you guys are at. Like, you got to take these things with a pinch of salt. However, I also have to give credence to it at a pretty decent level because inherently that's what brought me to the space. I observe things through a different sort of lens. I observe them through a psychological, which funnels into predictive programming or pre-programming, and a lot of symbology. And I think for me, as I said, my journey started with a random encounter at a golf club with a guy that had put his entire life savings into XRP, I think at like under a cent. Wow. And it was a startling story to hear. I was sitting in his golf buggy for 4 hours. As I said, completely random. This was probably like 2.5, nearly 3 years ago now. He had such conviction in what he was saying. And he started to talk about, well, you've got to look at what's been happening the last 10 years. You should look at this, look at that, look at the symbol here, look at the language there, look at the psychology applied to people here. I was like, wow, that's a really interesting way to look at the world. And I haven't really done that before. So at the end of the 4 hours, I was kind of pretty shocked, amazed, interested. But as I touched on at the top of the chat, it's a very large undertaking to try and map everything out to come to some sort of cohesive worldview on what we're talking about. So I guess really where it all started was obviously him, and then just piecing it together with your content. I honestly can't understate how important it's been listening to you guys for a long time. You guys, to me, have always been sort of the main axle of my narrative. It's driven by fundamentals. It's great research. It's a great geopolitical and macroeconomic intersection. which is super important if you're going to then try and tie in this psychology and symbology at the same time, because you need your core axle, your pillar of strength. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to observe and understand the patterns and the symbology and the psychology elsewhere. But what really started to pick up steam for me was probably mid last year, when I did a big piece on the PayPal mafia and the breadcrumbs on that front, and the strange links between the bearable guy, probably Elon's brother. I don't know if you've been down that rabbit hole. I'm due to do. Have you guys seen? I think his name's Not Financial Advice Crypto. He does a lot of
Yeah.
He does a lot of good fundamental stuff, but he's probably also the forefront of unpacking these symbols and riddles just because he loves it. But he's also got a terrific fundamental knowledge, and that was prior to even knowing who he was. But I did a lot of work with my partner. She absolutely loves what we all do, and she's been terrific with me. She works with me, and we've been unpacking these riddles and symbols for a very long time. And it all kicked off with the PayPal stuff mid last year, and going down that massive rabbit hole to finding like the wallets and the supposed wallets, and then tying this the cowboy stuff to Musk's potential brother. And I'm not saying it's all unequivocally true, but we all know that there is involvement from the PayPal mafia and Elon Musk within, OpenCoin when they first invested. That's just one branch of a very, very large tree. But I guess that gives you the kind of broad overview of how I went down this hole. And then it's gone into, the matrix, the gematria. I don't know if the gematria is completely sound in its rationale and conversions, but it's certainly interesting, and it evokes a great response, particularly on Instagram Reels and TikTok. So it's cool when you can, because the one thing that I do find undeniable is actual symbols within movies, like Metacortex, the X looking very similar to the logo, that you could call predictive programming. And I think, exactly right. These types of legitimate symbols you can't deny. And the fact that his passport expired, I think on September 11, 2001, when the Twin Towers collapsed. And that was a very, I put that in one of the videos that got like 5 million views. Not many people brought that point up, that Thomas Anderson's passport expired bang on September 11, which, unless you pause it for a fraction of a second at the specific point in the movie, you're not going to find. There's also there's tons of ones that I haven't done yet, where they're the buildings in one of the scenes. There's these two buildings, they're banks, but they're banks that no one's really heard of. And if you gematria translate them, it turns into Brad Garlinghouse.
Wow. Another riddle.
Which is quite funny. So I'll do one of them soon. But look, as I said, I think for me, it's just been a terrific journey of this intersection between fundamentals, sound logic, understanding what you've bought into, for everything you guys so perfectly put, but picking up on psychological patterns. And I think the most important point is the language. I pick up on language patterns the most with real people. So what Trump says, but what people miss, or what Scott Bessent says and what people miss. It's specific words and language choices that, unless you're acutely aware of the broader picture that we've just touched on, it's going to go straight through to the keeper and you're going to miss it.
They put it in plain sight, and the human mind can't capture it. So I think you really have a talent to perceive that.
Absolutely. And I think we're all on that level where we can sniff it as soon as it happens, and it's great that we can share it with our audiences, because I firmly, and a lot of people don't, they push back against it. They go, oh, how could you believe that they're just saying that? It's like, well, this clip was from a 50-minute clip. It's 2 seconds, and it's a weird word to use at this specific point because not many people are going to understand it. And I know for a fact that it's implying something that hasn't happened yet. And you're just not switched on enough to see that. So I don't know. That was a long-winded way of explaining how I've come to the space and where we are today. But it's been really exciting, and I just love learning, and I'm still learning, and it's cool to be able to help people. At the end of the day, I want to bring as many people into the physical asset as well as the digital asset space. To basically help us all out, because we're all the underdogs at the end of the day, just trying to keep our heads above water. And yeah, that's why I do what I do.
No, I think it's great. And, I'm looking forward to seeing more of these, basically these subliminal messages that are broken down. And I think that's really what you're doing here. And, long before I got into crypto and finance and pretty much what I'm doing now, I was so deeply involved in studying and, listening to some of the things that you now see on Rumble, but nothing for dark, nefarious reasons. I always thought that to understand how power hides in plain sight, you had to study it and go deeper. And at a very young age, like, I don't listen to everything Alex Jones or David Icke says. There's a lot of, you could say, distorted truths within a truth, right? And that's how they do this. And, I started listening to him when I was like 13 years old. Like, that's how young I started asking questions, at a very young age. And I thought I was going nuts at some point in my life, but turns out not really nuts, but just, again, to understand, you had to go deep. And the deeper you go, the more you see that secret societies, subliminal messaging that's coded in language, in movies, music frequencies, which is even in your songs that you listen to. Those are designed, and they're not there by accident. It's there to manipulate the mind. I think it's part of a system that was originally built to influence, distract, and even distort. And what's interesting is about the Matrix, and hence your post over there. The movie was not a film; it was a documentary. And I don't think it's fiction, because if you go back and watch the movie over and then you kind of step away for a bit and then come back to it, you see something you missed the first time. And it's not an accident, I don't think so, that Neo's employer, Metacortex, which is the leading software development in the world, that's what he says in the scene, right? If you look at the X, like you eloquently showed on your post, that is the XRP logo. That is not an accident. It's a direct reference, in my opinion. And when you begin to break it down even more, and whether gematria has some, like, if it's really real or not, interestingly, when you look at XRP, that's Ripple, that's XRP, right? The logo. And interesting, the logo of XRP, even now, when you look at it, it's Masonic. It's as above, so below. That's not an accident either. And also some tweets that were done by Elon Musk in the past. There's one a long time ago, I retweeted it. It was called 129 Orbits Around Saturn. I don't know if people remember that one. And the Doge Father too. That was from 2021. And when you decode those, they echo the same thing, XRP or something else, right? And I think just speaking in riddles is soft disclosure, and things that are in plain sight. And final thought, maybe. Even Disney, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but Disney, they've been, I hate to say this, but they've been selling sex to children for a very long time. So children's films are not even safe. Monsters Incorporated, you guys are familiar with that, shows the soccer ball when you take the chemical compound for something else, the CEO in the cartoon bragging about kidnapping children for energy.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that is not a conspiracy. When you study these patterns that you're discussing here, long enough, you begin to realize that we've been subjected to a system of control and chaos, and order comes out of that chaos that was initially put into motion. So definitely. I think a lot of this is hidden in plain sight. And again, hence some of the very beautiful comments I've seen over here, but spiritual warfare, it really is.
It is. That's why I've turned to God massively the last 6 months.
Same.
But that's time for really devoted Christian. And anyway, that's a chat for another time. But I would like to quickly say, on the Alex Jones point, I actually went on his show late last year, pre-election, pre the US election. Yeah, it was amazing. And because I was doing a lot more political commentary at that point. And I will say this, because he's a perfect example of someone that has predicted a lot of massive events, famously.
Yeah.
Do I agree with everything he says? Absolutely not. Much like yourself, Versan. But that is an undeniable fact. How does he do it? Well, I mean, he's talked openly about the fact that he probably, more broadly speaking, has done something very similar to what we're all undertaking, a strong fundamental understanding of politics, but reading like Congress meeting minutes and picking up on language choices in there. Like, who reads that stuff? Watching the subliminal messaging, tying it all together so that his brain, his neural network in its own way is coming to a very informed and educated probability of something happening. And that's all we're doing as well, is tying all the things together to come with a very informed. We can't give you dates, we can't give you prices, we're not in that game, but we can give you where things are heading. And I mean, it's pretty amazing that he was giving dates as well. I don't know how he did that, but
Yeah, he didn't even answer that on Tucker's show. Did you see that?
I haven't seen
had, like,
anything good Tucker yet.
Yeah, he circled around, but he never gave a direct answer. How the hell did you really, really, really know? Right.
Yeah.
But please continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all.
Have
Go
you
for it,
seen
Ito.
the 1992 movie Snickers?
I still haven't watched it, Ito. I need to watch it. I'm going to pencil it in with my partner. We'll watch it.
Where it says XRP.
Yeah.
I have here. I'll show you now. Wait, just give me a second. I have to share the screen. But yes, it says XRP, and that's just 1 year after Ripple Communications was created. So you guys know my thread about the Ripple Communications. So that's
God, that rabbit hole goes so deep.
That's too deep for the conversation, but I can show this. It's a 50 seconds clip, so I'm gonna play it.
Can you zoom in just so the audience can actually see it?
Yeah, I'm going to put on full screen.
That's okay. Yeah.
I think you better come over here. Carl, you got your little black book?
Yes.
Give me the number for something impossible to access.
What about this? Federal Reserve Transfer Node, Culpeper, Virginia.
Yeah, sure, good luck.
900 billion a day goes through there.
That'll do. Punch it in.
You won't get in. It's encrypted. See?
Mother, that last contact. Look at this, boys.
And there you go. If you pause it, you can see the XRP here.
See? Yeah. 262. I wonder what 262 stands for. Maybe you can figure that out, Nathan. Yeah, maybe, right? Also, another movie, it's a television series. It was called Blacklisted, I believe, Blacklist. One of the guys, he's trying to do a transaction. He's like, how are you going to move this money? He's like, we're going to do it through the XRP ledger. He says that in the show.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll have to find that blacklisted.
I'll try to send it to you afterwards here. I'm going to have to exchange information with you because
for sure.
there are a lot of things I do see. I just don't post it because it's just not the kind of topics I want to put out there. I do have a Rumble channel where I have openly talked about the trafficking and things like that in real detail. It's just you can't post that kind of stuff on YouTube. And I lost my kick to talk about it because, like you said, going down that rabbit hole, it really never ends. You go down, you open one door. Next thing you know, you're looking at 5. You open 5. Now you're looking at 10. And when you go down that rabbit hole, I think it's hard to climb back out and realize that you're not insane, but you're sane. And it's very tough on the soul, it's very tough on it.
I said this to a friend the other day. At the bottom of the rabbit holes is you got an option. You either give up on life or you choose God, because it is pretty dark.
Yes.
And, you go, well, there's a higher power and there's a purpose here. And that's ultimately why I think it's admirable what we do, because we're trying to focus on how we can help people instead of wasting heaps of energy on the dark, demented, twisted things that we all know goes on in this world, because it is spiritual warfare. We're focusing on how can we lift people up to have some sort of sovereignty in a rapidly emerging technocratic world. So, yeah.
I mean, this conversation can go on forever. And that's why I love these
We'll
things.
have to do it again, I'm sure. We'll have to do it
Yeah.
again.
Next week, my brother will be joining us. I'm just letting the audience know. But in the future, Nathan, I would love to have you back on. Maybe we can get all of us together. And I'm talking about David, my brother. I mean, it's going to be a lot for the audience, but I'm sure if we manage it appropriately, muting our mics and stuff, we can get through it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And by the way, we appreciate a lot that Nathan, you woke up at about 3:30 in the morning to join the podcast. I don't know if I was going to be capable to do the same. I mean, I don't know how you had the energy, man. Like 3:30 in the morning to wake up and come on live streaming. That's insane.
Yeah. Thank you kindly.
Thank
No,
you.
it's all good. I couldn't pass this opportunity up. It's been a pleasure. And as I said, once again, you've always been a great inspiration to me and to many. And I'll be sending my audience. I always send my audience across to you guys. Most weeks I usually post the chat that you guys have, and they love your stuff, and it's very, very helpful for them. So it's been terrific, and I look forward to doing it again in the near future.
Absolutely. It'll be an honor to have you on. Always humble to meet another critical thinker, man, deep diver. So truly appreciate you coming on and waking up that early. And just a big shout out to our audience. We reached 8,000 views. This is, I think, the first time to have a live stream at 8,000 views. So we really appreciate that. Please go and support all our work. I'll put some links in the description below, and Nathan will add your information down there as well. Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. And last message, be careful with the scammers. Don't send
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say this over and over again, but every week someone sends me a message that they got scammed and lost XRPs. And, it's getting very sophisticated, but ultimately just have your cold wallets and just don't send crypto to anyone who is asking you for crypto. That's how these scams are actually done.
We will never message you. Yeah, that's the message.
Agreed. Too busy to message anyone. So
Yeah, you can't even
that's the truth.
Sometimes it's difficult. Imagine if we would go texting everyone, it's like impossible. So if someone sends you a message, it's 100% a scam unless it's the verified account. Just make sure to check it well.
All right. Well, thank you guys. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, and happy Easter to those who do celebrate. So
Happy
thank
Easter
you,
to everyone. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.